The first time someone called it a burrow, Ethan Holloway laughed. The 10th time, he stopped bothering. By the 100th time, he almost considered it a compliment. After all, burrowing animals survived winter better than most settlers. The people mocking him seemed to forget that. Ethan certainly didn't. 3 months earlier, he had been homeless. Not because of laziness. Not because of bad luck. Because of debt. 2 years of drought had destroyed his crops. A third year finished what the first 2 started. The bank claimed his homestead before autumn arrived. At 32 years old, Ethan owned little more than a wagon, a mule, several tools, and a stubborn refusal to leave the valley. Most people headed west after losing everything. Ethan headed into the hills. He spent weeks studying the landscape. Not searching for gold. Not searching for timber. Searching for shelter. One afternoon, while following a dry creek bed, he noticed something unusual. A family of badgers had built dens into the south-facing hillside. Despite the cool autumn weather, warm air drifted from the entrances. Curious, Ethan sat nearby for nearly an hour. The temperature difference fascinated him. The hillside absorbed sunlight all day. The earth held that warmth long after sunset. The badgers understood something many people ignored. Underground temperatures changed slowly. That idea stayed with him. Several days later, he remembered an article he'd once read in an old agricultural newspaper. The story described earth-sheltered homes built on the frontier. Structures protected by soil instead of exposed to the weather. Most settlers dismissed the concept. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about it. The more he studied the hillsides, the more convinced he became. Wooden cabins fought winter. Perhaps the answer was building something winter couldn't attack. The solution arrived suddenly. Not a cabin. A dome. A circular structure built from timber, covered with thick layers of packed earth. The curved shape would resist wind. The soil would provide insulation. Most importantly, it could be built cheaply. Exactly what Ethan needed. Construction began immediately. The site sat on a south-facing slope overlooking the valley. He dug partway into the hillside, then built a circular timber frame using small pine trunks. The skeleton resembled an enormous wooden basket. From a distance, it looked ridiculous. Neighbors noticed quickly. A rancher named Tom Baxter stopped by one afternoon. He stared at the framework. What exactly is that? A house. Tom looked around. No. Ethan laughed. Yes. The rancher pointed toward the strange circular structure. It looks like a giant bird's nest. Give me time. Tom shook his head. You know cabins have corners for a reason. Ethan smiled. I'm hoping mine doesn't need them. The rancher rode away unconvinced. The comments only became worse as construction continued. Once the frame was complete, Ethan covered it with branches. Then grass. Then several feet of packed soil. Every day the dome grew larger. Eventually it looked like a small grassy hill. Only the front entrance remained visible. Children loved it. Adults laughed at it. Someone started calling it the Dirt Burrow. The nickname spread through the valley within days. Ethan ignored every joke. The structure wasn't designed to impress anyone. It was designed to survive winter. Inside, the dome felt surprisingly spacious. A central living area occupied most of the space. Small storage alcoves curved along the walls. A skylight made from salvaged glass provided daylight. The rear section extended into the hillside itself, protected by several feet of earth. Even before winter arrived, Ethan noticed something remarkable. The interior stayed cool during warm afternoons. At night, it remained noticeably warmer than outside. The soil slowed temperature changes dramatically, exactly as he hoped. Still, nobody believed it would work once real cold arrived. One evening, several neighbors visited out of curiosity. Tom Baxter returned with them. The group ducked through the entrance. Lantern light illuminated the rounded interior. One man immediately laughed. Feels like living inside a potato. Another nodded. A very expensive potato. Ethan smiled. Maybe. Tom ran a hand across the packed earth wall. I'll admit one thing. What? It doesn't feel cold. Ethan nodded. The ground rarely is. The men exchanged skeptical glances. Nobody seemed convinced. As they left, one of them delivered the verdict everyone remembered. Come January, you'll either be frozen or buried. Laughter followed them down the hill. Ethan simply closed the door, then added another layer of soil to the roof the next morning. By late November, temperatures began dropping rapidly. The first serious snowfall arrived shortly afterward. Settlers fired up their stoves. Chimneys filled the valley with smoke. Ethan decided to perform an experiment. For one night, he used no fire. None at all. He recorded temperatures inside and outside the dome every few hours. The results shocked him. Outside temperatures plunged well below freezing. Inside, the temperature dropped only slightly. The earth surrounding the structure released stored warmth slowly throughout the night. By sunrise, the dome remained surprisingly comfortable. Ethan repeated the experiment twice more. Each time the results remained consistent. The structure worked even better than expected. He carefully documented everything. Then came December, and with it, the first true Arctic front. The cold settled across the valley like a living thing. Water buckets froze solid. Livestock huddled in barns. Settlers burned enormous amounts of firewood. One afternoon, Tom Baxter climbed the hill again. He entered the dome and immediately removed his gloves. His eyebrows rose. "It's warm." Ethan smiled. "No fire today." Tom looked around. No fire. None. The rancher stared at the earth walls. Then the ceiling. Then the floor. Finally, he shook his head. "I don't understand it." Ethan pointed toward the thick soil overhead. "The hill does most of the work." Tom left more thoughtful than skeptical. But winter wasn't finished. Not even close. 2 weeks before Christmas, a government weather courier arrived from the north. His report silenced the entire general store. A massive Arctic system had crossed Canada. Mountain stations reported record-breaking snowfall. Several valleys were already buried. The storm continued moving south, straight toward them. The courier folded the report slowly. "If forecasts are correct, this may be the harshest winter in decades." Nobody laughed after hearing that. Not even the man who mocked the dirt dome. Ethan returned home immediately. He reinforced the entrance, stored additional food, filled every water barrel, checked every timber support. Outside, dark clouds gathered over the mountains. The wind began rising shortly after sunset. By midnight, snow covered the hillside. By dawn, the valley had disappeared. The blizzard arrived like a wall. By the second day, Ethan couldn't see the valley below his hillside. Snow erased everything. Fences, roads, barns. Even entire groves of trees disappeared beneath swirling white. Inside the dirt dome, silence ruled. The curved, earth-covered walls absorbed most of the wind's noise. Instead of listening to a storm rage around him, Ethan heard little more than a distant murmur. The difference felt almost unreal. He sat beside a lantern and checked his notebook. Outside temperature, 12 degrees below zero. Inside temperature, 38 degrees above zero. No fire. No stove. No chimney. Just earth. The hillside itself provided the warmth. Not warm enough to sit in shirt sleeves, but warm enough to survive comfortably. Ethan smiled and added another entry. The numbers seemed unbelievable. 50 degrees warmer than outside. Exactly what he had hoped for. The third day brought an unexpected visitor. A frantic pounding echoed against the heavy entrance door. Ethan immediately pulled it open. Snow spilled inside. Tom Baxter stumbled through the doorway. The rancher looked exhausted. His beard was frozen white. Good Lord. He stopped speaking the moment he entered. The warmth surprised him. Not hot, but steady, comfortable. Most importantly, still. No drafts. No icy corners. No freezing walls. Tom removed his gloves, then his coat, then stared around the dome. "You really don't have a fire?" Ethan pointed toward the empty stove. Tom walked over, touched it. Cold. His eyes widened. "I'll be damned." Ethan laughed. "That's what everyone says." Tom sat heavily on a wooden bench. "My cabin's eating firewood faster than I can cut it." Ethan handed him a mug of coffee. "The earth stores heat." Tom shook his head. "We've been fighting winter all these years." Ethan nodded. "The hill isn't." The rancher stayed several hours before returning home. He left thoughtful and slightly worried. The storm continued. Fourth day, fifth day, sixth day. Snow buried buildings throughout the valley. Several roofs collapsed beneath the weight. Firewood supplies shrank dangerously low. The dirt dome remained unchanged. Outside, snow piled against the structure. Inside, temperatures barely moved. The earth covering the dome became even more effective as fresh snow added another insulating layer. Nature was helping, not hurting. On the seventh morning, another knock came. Then another. This time it wasn't Tom. A family stood outside. A widow named Clara Jensen and her 2 young sons. Their cabin chimney had cracked. Smoke filled the house whenever they tried using the fireplace. They had nowhere safe to stay. Ethan welcomed them immediately. The boys entered cautiously, then stopped. One looked around in amazement. "It feels like spring." Ethan laughed. Not quite, but he understood. After days spent in freezing conditions, the dome felt astonishingly warm. The family remained through the rest of the storm. The boys helped organize supplies, clear up baked bread. Life inside the earth-sheltered home settled into a surprisingly normal rhythm despite the disaster outside. On the 12th morning, silence finally arrived. The wind stopped. Snowflakes drifted gently instead of racing sideways. The blizzard was over. Ethan opened the door carefully. Only the upper portion moved. The lower half remained buried. Everyone climbed onto the roof through an emergency hatch he had built during construction. The sight stunned them. The valley had vanished beneath mountains of snow. Entire cabins appeared reduced to tiny humps. Barn roofs barely protruded above the drifts. Roads no longer existed. Yet the dirt dome remained untouched. Its curved roof carried the snow effortlessly. The earth walls hadn't shifted an inch. The structure looked exactly as it had before the storm. Rescue efforts began immediately. Settlers spent days digging out homes, recovering livestock, clearing paths. Throughout the valley, one topic dominated every conversation: the dirt dome. People climbed the hillside simply to see it. Many couldn't believe it remained intact. One afternoon, a group gathered outside while Ethan explained the design. Tom stood nearby listening. Finally, someone asked the question everyone wanted answered. Why did it work so well? Ethan knelt and scooped up a handful of soil. Because the ground doesn't change temperature quickly. He pointed toward the hillside. The deeper you go, the steadier it becomes. Several men nodded thoughtfully. Others began examining the structure more closely. Not laughing anymore. Learning. Weeks later, as winter slowly loosened its grip, Ethan received another surprise. While expanding a storage alcove inside the rear section of the dome, his shovel struck something solid. Not stone. Wood. Curious, he dug carefully. A small chest emerged from the earth. The box appeared old. Very old. Inside he found journals. The writings belonged to a homesteader named Samuel Reed, the land's original owner nearly 40 years earlier. Ethan spent the evening reading beside a lantern. One entry immediately caught his attention. "Everyone insists I build a cabin." Several pages later, "The hillside stays warmer than any house I've owned." Ethan smiled. Then came another passage. "Perhaps the Indians understand this better than we do. They build with the land instead of against it." The journals described an unfinished, earth-sheltered home Samuel had planned but never completed. Illness forced him to leave before construction began. His final note made Ethan laugh aloud. "One day some fool may actually try this." Tom happened to visit that evening. "What are you laughing at?" Ethan handed him the journal. The rancher read the final page, then grinned. "Looks like you're the fool." Apparently. Tom looked around the dome. The successful fool. Spring arrived. Snow melted. Grass returned. And something remarkable happened throughout the valley. New construction began. Not identical dirt domes, but partially buried root cellars. Earth-sheltered workshops. Storage rooms built into hillsides. Settlers started paying attention to the ground beneath their feet. Years later, travelers crossing the region often stopped to see Ethan Holloway's famous dirt dome. Many expected a strange curiosity. Instead, they found a comfortable home. Cool during summer. Warm during winter. Efficient. Practical. The very qualities people once mocked.